Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the NerdRabbit Podcast. Glad to welcome back Jeremiah Cantu from Innovative Solutions. Good to have you again, Jeremiah.
Yeah, likewise, man. It's always good to reconnect.
Yeah. Well, for the podcast today, we're going to talk about something that's pretty big over in Innovative's business over there. This is a huge part of what they do as an AWS partner. And it's pretty big for a lot of organizations who are trying to best leverage the cloud for pretty broad-reaching initiatives. So what we're going to go into today is managed cloud services. I'm sure a lot of our viewers have at least heard the term thrown around if they're in the cloud space and have been working with cloud workloads. But we're going to talk a little more about the what, why, and how of managed cloud services, and really how companies can start to evaluate if this is a good path for them on their cloud journey. So just to kind of start things off on the most basic element, Jeremiah, can you explain to our viewers a little more about what managed cloud services are?
Yes, absolutely. Managed cloud services through an AWS partner like us and through Innovative Solutions are really a way for business owners and for folks who are leveraging cloud for their workloads to be able to engage and allow AWS experts to manage the infrastructure and architecture for them, so they can focus on building their business, building their app, updating their different business focuses without necessarily needing to focus on how the things that they use in cloud run.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing for a lot of companies. Everyone uses tech now, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're a tech company. That might mean you have to think about a lot of your internal workforce maybe more in the business foundation of what you're trying to do, even though the technical component is necessary. So the real question is, who should be doing what work, and where is your focus best spent? Now, something that comes up a little bit in this managed cloud kind of space is this idea of shared responsibility. So can you walk viewers a little more through like what this shared responsibility model is in terms of managed cloud?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have kind of a three-pronged shared responsibility. It's us, it's AWS, right, the cloud provider, and then it's the customer. What we're doing is we're really working in partnership with those other two teams, right? And our focus is the AWS infrastructure, or the AWS architecture, their specific resources within their account to provide the monitoring, the optimization, the management of backups, alerts that generate from that, which allows them to focus on the application, everything at that tier of that, things within their purview. And then we rely on the AWS team to provide the base infrastructure, right? The actual cloud. And the AWS does that through all their global, infrastructure data centers and everything like that, right? And then it's working in partnership and knowing how those pieces fit together, where, that's where we're working to provide that value to those customers.
Yeah, it's important to note, just because even though this is managed cloud, it's a team effort between everyone involved, including AWS for that matter, being kind of the underlying backbone of all this. So it's important to consider it that way, that customers aren't just giving you the keys to the car and you just kind of are the valet driver taking off from there, right? So we're not trying to just park your cloud somewhere. So
yeah, exactly.
Now, getting into past just the what of the managed cloud, let's talk a little more of the why, because again, sometimes there's the easy notion of, okay, company wants to focus on business, doesn't want to worry about the technical components, but there's a little more depth, I think, to it than that. So can you walk our viewers a little more through some of the different customers you've worked with? Why have they leaned towards having their cloud managed?
We get quite a few folks who come to us. Either they have always been a cloud customer, and maybe they've lost a recent technical resource on their side who was their cloud admin, or maybe they started out in cloud and their business really just ballooned, and they really want to focus on the things that make their business run, right? The things that make money for them, and they're really just leveraging AWS cloud as that's where they're going to run it, right? And where we're really trying to provide value is our expertise on AWS cloud for things such as like cost optimization. I get a lot of folks who come to us and I say, hey, how often do you look at costs. How often are you receiving alerts? Have you thought about any of these new product offerings? There's no way, even us as AWS focused as we are, it's hard for us to keep up with new products that come out, right? And for the business owner, for the team that's trying to run a business or work day to day, it's hard to find out everything that's happening or new advancements, right? And that's where we come in, right? And then there's other folks who maybe are potentially wanting to investigate what cloud looks like, even in modern time, even now, right? In 2024, July 2024, wherever we are, there are folks who are like, well, maybe cloud is for us, right? And you would think that folks know the value of cloud, but it's that ability to take that part of their infrastructure, take that part of their business and shift it to a partner like us. And it works best when we're seen as that true partner, right? I tell folks all the time, I want you to think of me as just another extension of your team, right? Regardless of what my paycheck says, regardless of what the logo on my t-shirt says, I'm working here for you.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important to consider. So you mentioned kind of keeping up with all the advancements in AWS, and that's obviously hard for anyone when you're keeping up with one of these mega tech companies, being it Amazon, Google, Meta. The change is rapid. They have enormous teams pumping out this change with obviously ambitious goals for it. So if you're working on your business foundation, you might not be going to the AWS summits all over the country where they announce a lot of new advancements. You might not be going to reInvent to hear about this new service around AI that's coming out and how it can change everything. And that's okay. Again, you have your business to run. But would it hurt to have someone on your team who is keeping their ear to the ground? And I think that's sometimes the question from innovation. From cost savings also, we talked about it on our last podcast together. It kind of comes back to those pillars, right? Knowing AWS from that kind of fundamental foundational space of what do they value, what's important to them, and what do they consider the most important things for running good workloads. So that's one of those things that I think is really important for companies to consider if they're thinking about managed cloud. Are you taking that holistic mindedness when you're thinking about your workloads that are existing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's tough to stay on track of discount programs, savings opportunities, even stuff like ride sizing. You may not understand how the things you create. A lot of the resources are based on per hour usage, right? Which is one of the huge value props of cloud, right? But just because you turn it on and set it and forget it doesn't mean you should be paying for it all the time, right? Let's talk about ways to save money. And the other thing I think a lot of folks come to us for is we provide those alerts and monitoring and a fully staffed 24/7 support team, NOC team, right, for emergency support, for alert ingestion, and then we try to do everything we can to resolve issues before engaging the customer. We work very closely with customers to work on support run books, plans for notifications and things like that, right? And that's where we provide not only that 24/7 monitoring, but even after hours emergency support. We never want to see anything happen where their entire environment goes down, but we do have a team ready and able to help them if that were to happen.
I mean, the whole world just the other day obviously saw a lot of outages. So I think that it's something that everyone has to consider. It doesn't matter how big or prestigious your organization is, how much you've worked to ensure robustness in your infrastructure. Things happen. This is a big, complicated world. So having some players in the game who maybe have, dabbled in a few emergencies might not hurt.
Exactly. And that's really our thing is the ability to use that our own, knowledge of AWS and, learning from past experiences, working with a wide variety of customers, right? I find myself with my existing customers, working on a solution for one, and then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this is going to be perfect for someone else, or looking at things that we're solving over here, and then applying it across, all of my assigned customers, and that's kind of the value that we bring in. And as a TAM, as part of our managed cloud services, you get an assigned TAM, right? And we take our jobs very seriously. That's the thing we're trying to do is bring our own expertise, knowledge, and value to those our managed cloud customers, right? It's much easier to retain and have that stickiness when you really are that trusted partner for that customer.
Yeah, and the way you mentioned it too, you learn one thing on one customer, you're able to apply that to another. I think that's one of the benefits of any time you're trying to utilize some sort of consulting type of practice. It's the idea that there's things you can't really learn in your own bubble. You have to get outside your bubble, and that's very hard if the only place that you exist is in that bubble. I mean, I get it. You're at your job. This is what you do. This is your day-to-day. And a lot of things you do work, but sometimes it's nice to have someone take that outside perspective and give you the chance to work with it from there. Now, I guess going past the why of it, we've covered really a lot of these different reasons someone might start to think about it. I guess, how can a company start to evaluate for themselves, right? There's a lot of different things we've gone over here. What are some kind of entry-level questions someone can ask themselves when they're like, hey, do I need a little bit of help in the cloud?
Yeah, I would say top of mind, like how often do you evaluate your costs? How often are you evaluating your utilization of your AWS resources? Do you leverage any tools or telemetry tools to monitor and alert you 24/7? And who on your team then has to take time to respond to those alerts or check and do that? Nobody, especially for smaller teams, it's hard if there's just a really small team supporting a huge infrastructure, a huge application infrastructure, and you're like, hey, we need some time off. We need to be able to who can cover those gaps for us, right? And then if you're looking for expertise on exploring, new options, let's say you have a traditional workload and you're like, how hard would this be to containerize, for example, right? And what would that look like? We have that expertise and that experience to be like, hey, this is exactly here's a POC, right? A proof of concept, things like that. And of course, our technical capabilities. We pride ourselves in our folks having that deep knowledge, expertise on AWS and being able to prove that not only through certification, but being able to say, hey, yes, I have these certs. Our entire team has them. Plus, here are our use cases. Here's the things that we've done for our managed cloud customers.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. When a company should be thinking about whether managed cloud services should make sense, there's a lot of questions you went that are almost like doctor questions, like a physical being done. Yeah. Hey, how often do you exercise? Hey, do you check your heart rate much? What's your blood pressure looking like? And if you're not asking yourself those questions on a regular basis, then it might raise the question that could it benefit you to get some help for someone to keep that pulse going and then have the constant best practice knowledge to lead you forward. So, I mean, past that, anything else you think is beneficial for our viewers to understand when it comes to kind of the big picture of managed cloud?
It's the managed cloud services providers, right? Innovative solutions included. Our goal is to maximize our value to you, cover the gaps to allow you to focus on your business, right? And become that trusted partner. And then also to be able to provide, that support that you need, or even, the second set of eyes, right? That we bring to the table. And then, we also, beyond the reactive, right? The proactive, we offer tools to look at your entire architecture from a holistic view and say, hey, here's what we can do better. Here's things that we could potentially look at. Here's things you may not have thought of that we can, new emerging technologies, different ways of thinking about it, just different ways of architecting. Or even if you're like, okay, it looks great. How do I replicate this, right? I think things like DR scenarios. Nobody really thinks about it until it goes down, right? And then things like compliance, right? We have our own compliances that we adhere to, and we can provide guidance on how you can get that way too, right? If it's something you need to do, or if you need to maintain that, right?
Yeah. I mean, as it goes, there's a lot of different things to think about. That's why we tried to have this podcast. Managed cloud is such an enormous concept because the cloud is an enormous thing. But the simple picture of it is that most people, when they're looking at the big picture, they can use a little help from someone who specializes in keeping up with that big picture. And in this context, it's AWS. It's making sure that you can leverage that to the absolute best of your ability. As always, Jeremiah, it's great having you on. We obviously will stay in touch as we keep working on different projects and stuff together. So always look forward to that. But until next time, I'm sure we'll have plenty more to talk about in some future podcasts. Hope you're able to have a good one until then. To our viewers, can't wait to see you guys next time.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's always great to be here.